This is Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. ICE detentions and deportations have significantly increased under the second Trump administration. Nearly 57,000 people were in ICE custody as of July 27th. That's according to the Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse, a data research organization at Syracuse University in New York. This visible uptick in detentions and deportations has activated activists working on behalf of immigrants to the U.S. In the past month in our region, we've seen protests against ICE, activists with cameras videotaping their activity, and stories of people being detained making local and national headlines. Austin Gaffney is one of the local reporters following these immigration stories closely here in Vermont. She's a VT Digger reporter and a UVM instructor. Austin, welcome to Vermont Edition.
Thanks for having me.
So, Austin, technically, you are VT Digger's environmental reporter, but I know you've spent a lot of time in the past month or two reporting on immigration. And I can imagine that's a reflection of just how much is going on in that space right now. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much happening in the state right now. We're a border state. As you mentioned, immigration, detentions, and deportations have really upticked under the second Trump administration. So there's just so much to cover. My beat has sort of expanded into that space.
Yeah. So let's start with one of your most recent immigration stories. You got access to some videos made by local activists who are tracking how ICE moves immigrant detainees. What exactly were these videos of?
So these videos were ones that activists took at the Burlington Airport last week. On Thursday morning, they were there around 3:30 a.m., and basically they witnessed a white passenger van pull up in front of a non-public side entrance of the Burlington Airport and unload folks into that side entrance, which then, through video, showed that it could have led to a part of the TSA security checkpoint.
Is that legal?
It seems that federal law enforcement agencies have always been able to use Burlington's airport in this way should they choose to. That is the airport's statement.
And what exactly do the activists oppose about this tactic? I assume they let media know about it because they felt like there was something inherently wrong with this way to move detainees.
So the point that they're bringing up is that they feel like ICE has in the past used a public entrance that means that they can be witnessed by the public as they're bringing detainees through the airport. Using this non-public side entrance means that they're not able to witness their actions in the same way. And they also say that this is an illegal, they call human trafficking. They're saying these people don't have access to legal representation when they're being moved by ICE through the airport. And so it is not for the activists, it's not a legal activity.
I should also mention that our phone lines are open. So if you've read some of these articles that Austin Gaffney has written for VT Digger or have been involved in some of these protests against ICE, give us a call. Tell us what you're thinking right now. 800-639-2211 is our number. You mentioned that you spoke to airport officials after these videos came out. Can you tell us a little bit more about what exactly they told you and what the airport's official relationship, if any, is with ICE and other federal authorities?
The airport says that they don't have any advanced information about when ICE or any other part of the Department of Homeland Security is going to move folks through the airport, and they have very little interaction with ICE. That is their official line. They also receive grant funding in the millions of dollars from the Federal Aviation Administration, and so they are, according to the airport, obligated to allow federal law enforcement to move through the airport, just like they would allow any other member of the public to move through the airport.
And ICE is moving people through the airport. Why? Like, are these folks who are detained in Vermont and are being moved to other facilities? Are they being deported? Does it really depend on the case?
Yeah, all of the above. So some of these folks have been detained in Vermont and are being moved out of the state. Vermont is also a transfer state. So some people can be moved into the state by ICE and then moved out of the state by ICE. That can be to a different detention facility like in Louisiana or Texas, which has about a third of the people detained by ICE right now collectively, or they could just be moved to deportation out of the Southwest.
And like I mentioned at the top of this hour, the number of people in ICE custody has gone up pretty significantly during the second Trump administration. Could you give us a little bit more context about what's going on here?
Yeah, so under the second Trump administration, they've provided an influx of federal funding to bolster ICE's efforts, basically, to detain and to deport folks. So there's been reporting local and national across the country about how this is affecting different regions. Here in Vermont, we have a lot of people who are initially detained by Customs and Border Protection and then transferred to ICE, as well as people just being detained by ICE at, say, an immigration appearance that they have to make in order to continue to stay in the country.
So let's hit on another story that you reported recently. This one's from mid-July. So just a couple weeks ago, you reported that activists intervened to stop 3 immigrants in ICE custody from being flown out of Vermont. What exactly happened here?
So activists say that they, again, got to the airport around 4 a.m. and saw ICE moving 3 women out of a 15-passenger white van and into the airport, where they went up to the ticket counter for American Airlines. The activists asked those women for their A numbers, which is a tracking number ICE uses, as well as their emergency contacts. The women became upset and basically started crying. And so the airline officials said, these people don't look like they want to fly today. And ICE said, yes, they don't seem like they want to fly today. And ICE took the 3 women and left. But American Airlines says that they actually had no official capacity stopping the women from flying. The women chose not to fly. That's the official American Airlines line.
Because assumedly anybody who's in some sort of detention or being held by police who is being transferred to another facility, they can be moved against their own personal will.
Yes, that's the idea. You're detained. You don't
Right.
you don't necessarily have an option. I think what the activists are saying is these people should have more legal representation to at least know what's going on and to be able to access a lawyer or their community members or their family members before they're being moved.
And it sounds like activists right now, because of perhaps how quickly things are changing and the increase in detainments under the second Trump administration, these activists are kind of playing the role of educators too, trying to talk to the airline representatives, to the airport, trying to share information that they might not otherwise have received.
Yeah, they've been following what's going on at the airport for a couple months now. They put together a large tracking system that shows that roughly 450 people, as their conservative estimate, have been moved through the airport, 450 ICE detainees. And so they're also sort of trying to expand this network of people who are watching airports across New England and educating them about how they can talk to people who are detained by ICE and the rights that those people have.
So these 3 women that did not fly that day, do we know what happened to them? Are they still in Vermont?
We do not officially know what happened to them because basically it is challenging to track people through the ICE system once they are out of the system. So those women, yes, were moved out of Vermont, but where they are today, I couldn't say.
And could you also explain for us, Austin, why folks who are working on behalf of immigrants might want to try to keep somebody here in Vermont, even if that person isn't from Vermont or hasn't been living here?
Yeah, so that's a great question. One of the things that activists are trying to do, again, is help people get access to legal representation. There was another story in VT Digger out yesterday about how immigration lawyers are trying to access more people who are moving through the Vermont system right now, but we just don't have that many immigration lawyers in Vermont. But keeping people here means, 1, they have more access to legal representation, and 2, if they're from Vermont, they have more access to their community. So one of the tactics DHS uses is moving people quickly through states so that they have less access to their lawyers or less access to their community members. It's much easier if people can remain in their community.
Yeah, it can kind of get lost track of by
Yes.
the system, by the lawyers working on their behalf. Yeah. I can imagine that reporting on controversial topics such as immigration and reporting on massive federal bureaucracies like immigration and customs enforcement comes with their own unique sets of challenges. What are some of the challenges that you as a reporter have faced as you've been working on these stories these last couple months?
Yeah, the immigration system is, as most people know who have immigrated to the U.S., is immensely complicated, and it hasn't had meaningful reform in decades. So it is a learning curve for people who are involved in the system, and it's a learning curve for people who are reporting on the system to fully understand what's going on, especially as so much has changed under the second Trump administration in terms of how people detained by ICE are treated by federal law enforcement.
Has it been tough to get answers from officials? Are people responsive?
It depends on the agency, I would say. Again, because we're in a border state, we chat a lot with Customs and Border Protection, and they're very responsive. ICE is less responsive and probably has a lot more demands on their media line, but we don't hear from them that often.
Yeah. You mentioned another story that just came out in VT Digger on this immigration beat. Are there other stories we haven't talked about today that you think that we should highlight around your reporting on immigration?
We were reporting for a while on the case that a lot of listeners probably know of Haiti Perez and Jose Ignacio, known as Nacho de la Cruz. They were both detained by Customs and Border Protection officials on June 14th, and they were just released. A few weeks ago, they were in detention for a little over a month in ICE detention, and they're still going through deportation proceedings along with a proceeding against the federal government that says that they were unlawfully detained. So we have been following that story and will continue to follow that story while their lives sort of continue to unfold here in Vermont.
Yeah, and that leads me to my last question, Austin, which is, do you think are you gonna be on this beat for a while? Are there other stories that you're hoping to follow in this area?
Yeah, I hope so. There's so much of Vermont's labor force when it comes to agriculture is dependent on migrant workers. And so that's how I got into this beat initially. And I hope to keep covering it as long as it's important to listeners and as long as we keep having folks who are immigrants here in Vermont.
Austin Gaffney is a reporter for VT Digger as well as an instructor at the University of Vermont. Austin, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to have you on again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
And you can find Austin Gaffney's recent reporting on immigration issues on vtdigger.org. Coming up, a group of locals has taken it upon themselves to visit every single town, village, and city in Vermont. It's called the 251 Club. We'll hear about their adventures across the state when we come back from a short break. And we want to hear from you. If you are a 251 Club member, call in now at 800-639-2211. This is Vermont Edition. Welcome back to Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Today, I am very excited to announce the kickoff of a new monthly series on Vermont Edition. We're calling it Town by Town. For 1 hour each month, we're going to hone in on one of Vermont's 252 towns, villages, or cities. We'll talk to residents, share local history, and learn about what it's like to live there day to day. Next month, on Wednesday, September 10th, we're heading to Elmore for a live show at the Elmore store. We're going to pick the town we focus on in future months by focusing on a bunch of different ways to do it. So sometimes we might ask you to vote. Other times we'll choose at random using a big spinner or something. I really am hoping to build one of those. And other times the Vermont Edition team may choose the town ourselves to coincide with something special, like this live show from the Elmore store. I'm really, really excited to go on this monthly adventure with you. We only need about 21 years or so to complete it, so buckle up. We're starting the series today not with a look at a specific town. Again, we'll start that in September. But today, we're going to have a conversation with some folks who know Vermont's diverse municipalities more than maybe anybody else. Members of the 251 Club. It's an organization of Vermont enthusiasts who aim to visit all of the state's towns and cities. Our guests are the group's executive director, Killian White in Bethel. Killian, welcome.
Hello there.
And George Hooker, the president of the 251 Club's board of directors. George, hi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And George, you're joining us from Rutland, yes?
Correct.
Awesome. All right, listeners, you can join this conversation too. Are you keeping track of how many Vermont towns you've visited? Give us a call at 800-639-2211. You can also send an email, as some of you already have, to vermontedition@vermontpublic.org. So, George, take us back here. What is the history of the 251 Club? When did it start?
It actually started in 1954. By a Dr. Arthur Peach. He was a professor of English at Norwich University, and he did a lot of things there for them. He's a local boy. He was born in Paulette. He graduated from Middlebury College and went on to be an English professor at the University of Norwich. He was also the debate coach. He coached football. It wasn't much he didn't get into. But one of the more interesting things from our perspective is he wrote a monthly column for the Vermont Life magazine. They had a name at the sign of the quill. And he was just allowed to write about anything and everything Vermonty. He wrote about the seasons, skiing, agriculture, travel, tourism, whatever caught his fancy. But he was very much a Vermont enthusiast. His chief message was that if you really wanted to get to know the state, you should get out and see it for yourself. Go to the towns and cities, stay a bit, do something, talk to people, because that's what he did.
Yeah, he has a great quote. He invited the native-born and those born elsewhere, but with Vermont in them, to veer from the beaten path to discover the secret and lovely places that main roads do not reveal.
I love that. The native-born and those born elsewhere, but with Vermont in them.
Me too.
So inclusive. Killian, when did you get involved in the 251 Club?
I've been involved since I was a small child. Going on tours with my parents. I was born and raised here, went to Middlebury, and I moved back here in 2018 because of the deep connections that I have. This wonderful support network here.
So were you already a full, complete 251 Club member by the time you hit 18 or something?
Alas, no. That is certainly has been a goal that I feel all the more motivated to fulfill now. But I'm celebrating my 1-week job anniversary today as executive director. So thank you very much for helping me start it off with a bang.
Oh, congratulations! Happy 1 week.
Thank you.
And George, you've been involved with 251 Club for a while now. How did you first get connected to the group?
Well, I had always heard of it and thought, yeah, I really should join. And finally, in 2014, when I retired from teaching, I bought a membership for myself and each of our 4 grown children as a Christmas present. And a year later, they had an opening on the board, and one of the Rutland people who had been serving as a board member put my name forth, and I've been on it since then, and been the president of the board for the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, you all have a active membership, as evidenced by our phone lines. We got lots of folks calling in. We'll start with Paul in South Burlington. Paul, are you a 251 Club member?
I'm not actually a member, but I am doing the 251.
Oh, tell us about it.
I'm doing it by bicycle and public transportation. So
Wow.
my method is to, I get the bus to Montpelier from South Burlington, put my bike on the bus, and I'll do maybe a 6-day or a 3-day loop. It'll take me to Newport and back, and I'm going this with full camping gear, so I'm camping along the way. I typically do about 50 miles a day, and about 4 to 6 cities during that time.
Wow. What an adventure. Paul, your message about how you're doing it via bike and public transit reminds me of an email we got from Sam in Jericho, who says that they completed their goal of riding their bike on dirt roads through every Vermont municipality in 2023. It took me to places I would never have been otherwise, from camping next to abandoned mountaintop radar stations to quiet towns with no paved roads. I learned so much about this state and myself. Killian and George, I imagine you both have had experiences like that of stumbling upon a place that you think when you get there, I would have never come here if not for this 251 club that I am part of. I'd love to hear from each of you, Killian, starting with you, about maybe one experience like that stands out.
Oh, goodness. Oh, I think my goals with my family sort of evolved because oftentimes people will develop their own goal of it, whether it's visiting covered bridges or cemeteries, libraries. And I just distinctly remember doing geocaching as a way to do so. I just remember the wonder of as a kid of going to a town and looking at these little pockets, these little hidden caches of treasures that people had set in various towns for people to find. That's particularly wonderful for a small child. So that's my most distinctive memory.
Oh, that sounds magical. George, what about you? Any specific memories stick out of a surprise that you encountered on one of your 251 motivated adventures?
Yeah, well, I had heard of Snowflake Bentley even as a grade school student, but I never stopped in Jericho, Vermont, which is where the Snowflake Bentley Museum is. And when I did so, is what a treasure that is, and the most amazing things. I mean, the man basically invented microphotography, and he gave us that saying, "No two snowflakes are alike," as a result of his work. Yeah, so it's rather interesting to realize how many amazing little things are hiding all around our state.
Yeah, I bet there are so many that you all and members of your club have discovered, little hidden treasures. Let's go back to the phones. We have Matt calling in from Sunderland. Matt, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I completed this project with my wife, mostly during COVID, a version of it basically for runners, where we had to go through and run at least a mile in each town in Vermont.
Do you have a favorite spot or run that you remember from that time?
Ooh, my favorite probably, we were training for a marathon that was supposed to happen, and things were being canceled because of COVID, of course. So we went out and did our own self-supported marathon through the islands of Lake Champlain. We started on Isle La Motte, and getting to the state park in Milton was exactly 26.2 miles.
That's amazing, Matt. Thanks for sharing that. Killian, it seems like one thing that ties a lot of folks in the 251 Club together is the fact that they not only want to visit every town and village and city in Vermont, but they want to do something very specific in each of those places once they get there, like biking or running. Do you hear about that often?
Yeah. Certainly, it just gives you a little bit more of a focus to narrow down, what you might be looking for, and you can tie a few different things together. Like, there's a brewery owners who, they make sure that they were stopping at breweries and hit the towns along the way. There's actually a really memorable story about someone whose goal was hitting a golf ball in every town, including on the State House lawn. So it's really, we're a proudly lawless organization that any way you want to do it is the right way to do it. And there's no grading at the end. So people are able to do as much or as little as they'd like to mark the occasion.
Well, for Kevin and Emma, their thing is cemeteries. They write, after learning on our first date that we both love cemeteries and driving to random places in Vermont, joining the 251 Club was an inevitable next step. Now, having completed the first year of our journeys, nearly every town has included a cemetery stop. We both love maps and exploring random nooks, crannies, and the dirt roads that get to those nooks and crannies. The 251 Club has been the perfect way to share these passions. They also say that they recommend getting an atlas and watching out for class 4 roads in the winter. Very wise advice, Kevin and Emma. Now, Killian, you had just brought up that the group is pleasantly lawless. There's no right or wrong way to do it. But George, I imagine that people often ask, how do I officially check off a town? Do I have to get out of my car or off my bike? Do I have to buy something if there's a business? Or can I just drive through? Does that count? How do you answer those kind of questions?
Well, as Killian says, we're lawless. There are no real rules. We would hope that you would stop in the town, not just fly through it. People used to think you had to take a picture, that you had to take a photograph of the town clerk's office or something like that. No, that's not true. But you should at least pause and do something there and to check it off on your list. This is totally on the honor system, however. And when you notify us that you have completed your quest, we're not going to ask for proof. We do present you with a nice certification of completion and a nice little completed quest decal for your car. But yeah, I think you'd be surprised at people. They impose actually more stringent rules on themselves than we ever would.
I really, really want one of those decals now.
Yeah.
Killian, what were you going to add there?
Oh, I was going to say, when we provide things that could be helpful for that. So, we provide, a map, and we'll provide a journal, which you can fill in or not. That could be your way of marking the town, is making sure that you have a journal entry. You can color in a map of all the towns in Vermont. But yes, as I said, it's really up to you what tools you want to use or not. We just welcome your stories.
Well, let's collect more of those stories here today. If you are a part of the 251 Club, or you're trying to visit every town or city in Vermont or in the state that you live in and are listening from right now, call in at 800-639-2211. We have Karen calling from Manchester. Karen, go ahead.
Hi. This is just apt. I happen to be visiting here in Manchester Center today and the rest of the weekend. But I did live in Sandgate, Vermont for 45 years. My husband was from Sandgate, Vermont. And back in the mid-1990s to early 2000s, he was always espousing. He liked to ride. He liked to have a steering wheel in his hand. And so I finally said to him one day, I heard about this club. And I said to him, Mark, I said, we need to go to every town in the state. So we did. It took us about 7 years of weekend driving. And then everything from Montpelier north of there, we had to break up and do that in 3 weekends across the state.
Wow.
But it was so much fun. And we did finish it, and we got our certificate. What we like to do is, of course, this was back in the 90s, so there was no GPS or anything like that. And so we always had our official state map, and we also had the state atlas, the big thing with all of the town roads on it. A lot of roads weren't even named at that time. So we would just go around, and what our goal always was, we never entered a town by any main road. We always went into it by a back road, whatever. We had some great, right. And I happened to be town clerk at the time that we started this. So we always looked for the town clerk's office.
So give a little tip of the hat to a fellow town clerk. Karen, that's a great idea. I think you were also maybe trying to give a tip of the hat earlier to not just the Vermont Atlas, but the Gazetteer, one of my favorite publications out there. George, how did you navigate around when you were trying to visit all of the towns and cities in Vermont?
Well, I haven't completed my quest yet. In
Yes.
fact, I was looking at our journal. This is what we do. We keep the journal in our glove box. And when we find ourselves somewhere, we have like 3 rules. One is we need to be together, my wife and I. And second is we should do something while we're there, that's something we can write down about. And the There it is. We got to remember to write it down. I was looking. I've only made 82 entries. Okay, so 82 towns out of 251 or two actually. Um, and then I'm looking. Rutland City has no entry.
Oh
I've
no.
lived there for.
Check it
I've
off
lived there all my
today.
life, and we've made no entry. So the important thing is for us was to write it down. As Killian said, we have some things that we have a website, and when you're a member, you have access to a digital interactive map of the state, and you can check off. You can make a little mark, and it'll color in that town for you. By the way, a little bit piece of trivia when when the state was first being formed like this, they went out and surveyed and tried to uh, make the towns into little 6 by 6 squares. And so each of these towns is almost, there's so many of them that are almost exactly 6 miles by 6 miles. And then they had some leftover pieces that the surveyors couldn't quite account for, and those became what we now call gores. We have 3 gores and 1 grant that are little triangular shaped pieces of kind of leftovers on the maps. So the head count is actually 237 towns, and 10 cities, and 5 unorganized towns to come up with the 252 that we now have. And of course, people now know that
Yes.
new piece of trivia where we get 252 and why we're still
I
calling ourselves the 251 Club.
Yeah,
But
George, I'm glad you brought up this elephant in the room in our discussion of the 251 Club, which may or may not need a rebrand. Killian, can you tell us about what happened with Essex Junction to make it 252?
Oh, sure. Let's see. That occurred on July 1st, 2022. Governor Phil Scott signed a bill that created the city of Essex Junction. And I don't remember the reason though, if they're just a different identity or just the way that they were organized and governed themselves. It just made sense to split. But it's my understanding that we kept the name because that was what it was dubbed at its founding, and I don't know, captures that spirit, that history. But George, you may have a better insight than I do.
George?
well, there was Essex, and they separated into a town and city, which is not all that strange because I live in Rutland City, and we're surrounded by Rutland Town. There's Berry City and Berry Town. There's a number of incidences like that in around the state, but for some reason, they wanted to separate. They wanted to be a separate entity, and you have to petition the legislature to do that. And in fact, in all cases, to be a city, doesn't have as much to do with population or size as to the kind of government that you have. Cities typically have mayors and uh, city councils or boards of aldermen, while a town will probably hire a manager and have select people and probably have a town meeting come election time and stuff like that. So it's not so much size. You would think so, but like Vergennes is a city, but there's over 70 places in Vermont that have more people.
Yeah, we don't make it easy here, do we?
Oh, and
We do
Winooski,
have to take a short break, George. I'm sorry to have to cut you off. When we
sure.
come back, I want to hear more details about Vermont's towns and cities, and we'll also take more calls. This is Vermont Edition. Stay with us. Welcome back to Vermont Edition. I'm Michaela Lafrac. This hour, we are talking to members of Vermont's 251 Club, a group of folks who have or are trying to visit all of Vermont's cities, towns, and villages. Our guests are George Hooker in Rutland, the board president, and Killian White in Bethel, who is celebrating today her 1-week anniversary as the club's executive director. We've gotten a number of emails from those of you who are trying to hit this 251 number. Nick writes, the Vermont 251 Club has been a big part of my life since 2016. I'm currently at 215 towns visited and have completed almost 100 hikes, visited many covered bridges, historic sites, and so much more. I'm planning to complete my journey this spring to make it exactly 10 years since I started my adventure. And Sarah writes, we've been to all 251 and have several photo albums to prove it. What fun we had. Well, let's go back to the phones. We have Al, who has been waiting patiently on the line in Mendon. Al, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Hello? Yeah, okay, hi. This is Al Wakefield in Mendon, right? Not too far from Rutland City, in fact. I'm a member of a group of 6 people, all from Rutland County, who have visited in one way or another all 247 towns. We've either been there directly or we've been there via phone because we're part of a statewide initiative called the Declaration of Inclusion Initiative. And that's an initiative to try and get all 247 cities and towns to adopt a declaration of inclusion. And so we've met with the select boards and the town clerks and town managers, I guess coming at each town from a little bit different direction, but we've had some wonderful experiences and some interesting experiences otherwise as well, as you can, I'm sure, imagine. But our goal is to get all 247 to adopt the Declaration of Inclusion. 163 have to date and are beginning to implement what we ask them to do. So I wanted to get all 252 members of the 251 Club as they go from town to town to implore them to adopt a Declaration of Inclusion.
Oh, well, Al, thank you for calling in. And just to reiterate there, the Declaration of Inclusion is this grassroots effort that folks are working on with community leaders to reinforce the message that Vermont is a safe and welcoming place for all. That is from their website. Al, thanks for letting us know about those efforts. Elizabeth in Shelburne is also on the line. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well.
Great. I was telling your associate that I just walked in the door in my Shelburne home from walking towns 211 through 216 on my list.
Wow. How was it?
It was awesome. I am walking a mile in every town. That's my thing. Everybody has their thing. Mine's a mile in every town. And the real challenge that I put for myself is I'm trying to do it in 6 months. I started on April 1st. And I want to wrap up by September 30th. I started here in Shelburne, Vermont with 1 mile, and I'm going to end it in Moortown, Vermont, where I grew up.
Wow. Elizabeth, I love that idea, and good luck on your adventures. Thank you so much for telling us about them. Killian, I can imagine that there are some parts of the state that, if you're in southern Vermont, it's a lot harder for you to get up to the NEK and check those ones off your list, or vice versa. Do you often hear about people taking weekend or week-long trips to check towns off their lists?
Certainly, yeah. Particularly, up north, I've heard stories about, canoeing from town to town. Making extended camping trips. People do things like the long trail, help them cross things off their list. So particularly if you're outdoorsy, that's a good way to get to those smaller and more remote areas. But again, if you have some sort of goal activity that can bring you something that you'll enjoy in these different parts, then you can sort of radiate with other towns immediately surrounding, and that's, I think, a good way to get those persnickety ones that.
Yeah, speaking of, we got an email from Nancy in Burlington who says that she co-leads a group of retired women who are visiting all the towns. They visit about 5 towns once a month. They started in 2019 and they're still going, and they're about to do some overnights to get to Windham and Bennington counties. Their rule is that they have to get our feet on the ground in a town to count it, and they've had some great discoveries and fun days exploring this amazing state. We also just got a remarkable email from a listener named Melissa in Montgomery. Get this. She writes that a number of years ago, she was riding her bike and found a 251 Club diary at a local restaurant stop in Montgomery. It was waterlogged from a recent rainstorm, and Melissa took it home to dry it out and then started to read it. And after much research, located the owner of the book, sent it to an address in Montpelier, and after a couple of weeks, they received a very surprising and thoughtful thank you letter from the owner of the book, who also sent them their very own 251 Club book, and they could not believe I actually tracked them down. Melissa wrote. George, it's this story, I just love it. And it sounds like just yet another example of how this group is connecting Vermonters in really unique ways.
That is amazing. And a gift membership is a very common thing that we get requests for. People that want to surprise a friend with this what they think is a great idea, and we, of course, totally agree with them, to get a gift membership from somebody to encourage them to join us in this quest. It's really cool.
Steve writes, my lovely bride and I registered our friends as a thank you for letting us stay at their home in St. Jay for the eclipse. When I saw the two of them the other day, I was told that they had knocked off a couple towns the day before. Since we signed them up, the four of us have gone on 251 trips together, one in the Brattleboro area, the one other in the White River Junction area. We did our 251ing from July 2003 to July 2006, and our friends had signed us up for our first anniversary. I like that 251ing is now a verb. Holly in Burlington has also called in with her own story. Holly, have you been on your own 251 quest?
Yes, I have. Actually, we completed ours in November of 23, and our goal was to have our little dog, Sophie the Shih Tzu, visit every town, which we completed. Winooski was our last town. We live in Burlington.
Huh.
And there's actually a story, if people want to Google 7 days. The title is called Pup Peas in Every Town. It was the fourth most read story in Vermont the week it was published. So it was really a joy. I do want to give one little tip, though. Lewis is a town way up on the border that has a population of 0. And when we first went, we couldn't get there because it is you can only get there through a gate, which opens after Memorial Day. So if you're headed up to do like Norton and Lewis and Island Pond, like way out that way, make sure you do it, if you want to actually get your feet on the ground in Lewis without climbing over a gate. You need to do that.
Holly, that just all made my day. And your note about Lewis is echoed by Sarah, who wrote us an email saying that they have a wonderful photo in their kitchen taken in Lewis from the look-off looking down to Lewis Pond. Holly, congrats to you and your pup. Killian, is Lewis one of those like storied towns? Does it have its own lore around it for 251?
I saw that response about Lewis, and I didn't quite realize how what a rarely discovered gem that is. Actually, I had never heard of it before the story, but I've heard two instances of it being this memorably lovely place. So this is part of the joy of this job, is learning about things even having lived here most of my life, there's still so much more to discover.
Right. That sounds like a shared joy for both you and George there. Let's get into a couple more callers here. Janet is calling from Lake Placid. Janet, go ahead.
Hello. It's Ausable Chasm, but same general area. I've been going to Vermont towns for the last 30 years on various reasons. And I love the state. I like driving in it. And it's the best state that I've ever lived near to get lost in, because the town people are very helpful. There's always a place to pull over, like to go for a little walk or just enjoy the woods. I never had the feeling like I'm never going to get out of here. I don't know where home is, because it almost still feels like home when I go over there. But it's also like a little vacation, so it's really cool. So thank you for the program. This is inspiring. Maybe I'll start adding up my towns and join the club.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you so much, Janet, for calling in from New York. And we have Brian in Bethel on the line as well. Brian, I understand you are almost to the end of your 251 Club journey.
Yes, we have 5 left. We actually are doing the entire state by foot and on bicycle.
Wow.
We hike the long trail in both directions. And we are also incorporating all of Vermont's historical markers into our travels. There's 350 or whatever there are. And so we do not use GPS. We use the old Vermont Atlas and Gazetteer. We pick a spot. We'll do a 40 to 50 mile bike ride when we will avoid as many main roads as possible. We try to find all of the lost villages, the old schoolhouses that don't exist anymore. And we just make an absolute adventure of visiting the places that are long gone. And the joys and the gems of an old church or an old schoolhouse on a back road in a place that hardly gets visited anymore. I mean, you can't express it. And Lewis is actually far easier to navigate than some of the towns I've been in.
Oh.
So it's lovely. Enter from the Ferdinand side. It's an absolute gem on bike. I mean, you couldn't have a better bike ride up there.
Well, Brian, good luck with your last 5. Killian, we just got an email from someone you might know, Kirk, who says, Killian's dad here. We got started doing Vermont 251 by doing brewery touring and realized that we could do both at the same time. So your dad says hi. Briefly, before we have to wrap up, I would love to hear what is the next stop for each of you on your 251 journey. Killian, we'll start with you.
I've found myself. My other job is working as the marketing operations manager of Middlebury Acting Company, and I just recently started that position as well, which brings me a lot more to the Addison County area. And so, I mean, I went to school here, so there's a certain amount, but when you're in college, I think your life is more insular, and so there's particularly like nooks and crannies of like exploring all of the gaps. I think that's going to be the next area to make sure that I've plunged the depths of Addison County.
And George Hooker, what is your next one, other than journaling about Rutland City, where you live?
That was going to be my very comment. Yes, I better get busy and check off these towns, these many places I know I've been to. I just need to document that we did something there and start filling up that journal. We have a rather famous person who is part of the club, and he's all done but one. And this is former Governor Jim Douglas, who refuses to go to the last one, which in his case is Lewis, because he doesn't want the journey to be over. He wants the journey to continue. I would like to make a little push for the annual meeting for those people who have called in or that are members and would like to come to the annual meeting. It'll be in September, and we hold it this year at the Capitol Plaza in Montpelier, and encourage anybody and everybody to call in their stories or write their stories, send their stories to us. We include it in the newsletter that we put out. Everybody's welcome, and we'd love to have people consider joining us and get out there and explore this great little state of ours.
That's a important message to share. And Killian, just briefly too, I'd love if you could remind folks of how to join the club if they're interested.
Well, we have a website. It's easy to remember. It's vt251.com. It's pretty easy to navigate. So you can find more information there.
All right. Killian White is in Bethel, is the executive director of the 251 Club. Killian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having us.
And George Hooker in Rutland is the board president of the 251 Club. George, thanks for sharing your stories.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, good luck with that journal. Sounds like you have some work to do. Tomorrow on Vermont Edition, we are going to go on campus and learn what the college dating scene is like right now, especially now that apps have taken over. But are dating apps really leading young people in Vermont to creating real romantic or interpersonal connections? Should be a fun one. I feel like my dating years in college were eons ago, so I am excited to feel young again and hear some of these stories. If you have a funny story of dating in college in Vermont, we would love to hear it ahead of tomorrow's show. You can email vermontedition@vermontpublic.org. Today's show was directed by Aaliyah Papes. John Ahrens is Vermont Edition's managing producer, and Andrea Lorian and Daniela Fierro are our producers. Our intern is Callie Canuxerl, and today's call screener was Rick Barrett. Our theme music is by Myra Flynn. I'm Michaela Lafrac. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch up again soon.
These days, there's so much news, it can be hard to keep up with what it all means for you, your family, and your community. The Consider This podcast from NPR features our award-winning journalism. 6 days a week, we bring you a deep dive on a news story and provide the context and analysis that helps you make sense of the news. We get behind the headlines. We get to the truth. Listen to the Consider This podcast from NPR.